Hi, I'm Shashank Bhargav, and you're listening to Three Things, the Indian Express news show. In this episode, we talk about why the Competition Commission of India is looking to investigate Amazon and Flipkart. We also take a quick look at the Supreme Court deciding to fine 8 political parties. But first, we talk about COVID-19. It has now been over 6 months since India's vaccination drive started. Till now, over 50 crore doses have been administered. But most of India, of course, still has not been inoculated. In this segment, Kaunain Sheriff, who has been reporting on the COVID-19 pandemic for the Indian Express, joins us to talk about the challenges that India is facing right now in trying to speed up the vaccination drive, whether vaccine hesitancy has decreased, and how the virus is spreading right now. So, Kaunain, we understand that over 50 crore doses have been administered so far, but only about 10 crore people have got both the doses. That's a little more than 8% of the population. What challenges are we still facing in trying to scale up the vaccination drive?
So in terms of the second dose, we need to understand that firstly, the dominant vaccine that is being used in the vaccination drive is the Covishield, which has been manufactured by the Serum Institute. And the scheduling is not like how it is in the Covaxin, which is just you get your second dose after 28 days. So a longer duration is there for Covishield. And that is the reason why we are seeing that people who have received both the doses is right now hovering around 10% of the eligible population. So that's the reason why. Secondly, also because we have right now only 2 vaccines, technically 3 vaccines in our basket, and we need to increase our coverage. Remember, the eligible population is around about 94 crores. So to increase the coverage, at least of the first dose, which is a huge number, the big push has been to at least inoculate or administer at least 1 dose of the vaccine so that if there is a third wave, then at least we can see a significant reduction in mortality or hospitalizations. However, the government says that at least in the next 2 months, we are going to see a big push from the vaccines, especially the ramping up of Covaxin, which happens because of 2 plants, which is the Bangalore plant and the Ankleshwar plant in Gujarat. We are also probably going to see Zydus Cadila getting its approval maybe the end of this week. So we'll have another vaccine. And hopefully that vaccine will come into the market by the end of September or early October. And then we are also having other vaccine, which is the biological E vaccine. Remember, biological E is one of the largest manufacturer of vaccines after Serum Institute in India. So they have a big facility for manufacturing. So we expect the biological E subunit vaccine, which is doing the late stage 3 trials. So we expect these 2 vaccines. And of course, we've seen Adar Poonawalla saying that the Novavax, which in India will be called as the Covax, will also come into the market in maybe September or October. So basically, so the increase in the vaccination basket would then lead to a large number of people receiving both the doses. So these 2 are interrelated.
And apart from this, we recently had seen the Johnson & Johnson vaccine getting emergency use authorization. It became the second vaccine to be granted emergency use through this fast-track route in India. So could you talk a bit about that vaccine and how much it is supposed to help with expanding the vaccination drive?
So there are 2 issues with the J&J vaccine. The first, which is a good thing, is that they have a tie-up in India, again with biological E, for manufacturing here. So the transfer of technology could happen and the manufacturing would happen in India. However, the most contentious thing is in terms of the procurement is related to the indemnity clause.
Right, and before we talk about this issue, could you explain what indemnity is?
So indemnity is basically the protection that you grant to the companies if there is a serious adverse reaction or if there is lapses in the manufacturing of vaccines. So all these liabilities that arise out of these events, there's a protection that is granted by the government. However, in India, there is no such protection for these kind of liabilities. The law, as a vaccine is the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, there is no explicit clause in India for such kind of waiving off of liability. However, because it was a pandemic, US and UK and other European Union countries have granted the indemnity because their laws have such clauses in their local laws.
So Johnson & Johnson and Moderna, which have received emergency use authorization in a fast-track way, they, along with Pfizer, have been demanding indemnity from the Indian government. especially because they have got indemnity in Europe and the US. So, what development have we seen regarding this in India?
So in India, right now, there have only been talks. The government has been tightly because the government says that they have vaccine manufacturers have invoked what we call as a confidentiality clause about the talks. But broadly, the government has indirectly said through most of its official briefings that if indemnity is given to one vaccine manufacturer, then it has to be given to all the vaccine manufacturers, which points out that even Indian vaccine manufacturers, which is Serum Institute and Bharat Biotech, should also then be granted indemnity. So the big question mark is that if you grant an indemnity and if there are beneficiaries who have got serious adverse reactions and want to seek compensation, will the government then constitute a separate fund like how it is being done in the US and European Union? So that's the big question mark, because right now the Drugs and Cosmetics Act is silent both on indemnity as well as a special fund if an indemnity is granted. So these are the contentious issues which have been going on by both the manufacturers as well as the Indian government. There has been no clarity on it as of now. The parliament was informed last month that a team is having a continuous dialogue, but we have to still watch if they come to a conclusion that indemnity can be granted. But if it is granted, we also know that Serum had earlier sought indemnity after Pfizer raised it. So if Pfizer and Moderna get indemnity for their mRNA vaccines and Johnson & Johnson get indemnity for its single dose vector vaccine, then the other manufacturers also have to get indemnity. So that's the big question mark. But whether we get indemnity or not, Johnson & Johnson would soon start its manufacturing with its partner in India, because they have also plans to then send it to the other facilities for the COVAX as well as to export it to other countries.
And Conan, talking about the vaccination drive, early on, India was prioritizing healthcare and frontline workers. Then it was the vulnerable population. Is the government looking to prioritize any particular section of the population right now?
So remember, there was a shift in June 22nd when we saw that the procurement is exclusively being done now by the center, and administration of the vaccines is being done by the state governments, which means that the 75% of the vaccines that are manufactured in the country are given to the states free of cost to vaccinate everyone. But the states can prioritize who they want to inoculate. So that is the complete discretion of the states, because there have been talks of opening up of schools. If the states want to prioritize vaccinating the teachers, so they can go ahead and do that. So there is a clear an indication, not just indication, but the states are now allowed to prioritize within the priority groups. But that is the discretion of the state. However, your question is whether the center is trying to do? No. Right now, the only priority groups, like you said, are the frontline workers, healthcare workers, and for the other priority groups, it's the state which will have to take the call. But during the meetings with the states, the center, however, highlights vaccinating the tribal groups, because these are the groups where there is a significant amount of vaccine hesitancy. So in that sense, there have been conversations with the states to prioritize vaccination for these groups because they are vulnerable and their vaccination has to be done on priority.
And the other thing that we have seen in contrast to the earlier phase of the vaccination drive is that in the past 3 weeks or so, more doses are being administered in the rural population, right?
Yeah. So that has happened again because of the change in policy and because we are seeing the ramping up of the Covishield. Since the government has control of 75% of the vaccines which are going to the states for free of cost, now there has been a significant jump in rural vaccination. In fact, the data that we received from the last 3 weeks, we saw that out of the 9.8 crore doses, more than 6.2 crore doses were in the rural parts, which was a significant 63% of the total vaccinations. So that is around 30 lakhs vaccinations in rural India. So this is a significant jump because the last time the center gave out the data was when it replied to the Supreme Court, where it said the rural vaccinations were just 51% of the total vaccinations. Remember, 70% of India's population resides in the rural parts of the country. And we had seen massive vaccine inequity when it comes to rural parts because all the big corporate hospitals are in the urban centers. And in the first few phases, we saw that most of the vaccinations, even the supplies, went to the private hospitals. So that is a significant shift. Of course, beyond the numbers, the increase have implications on the public health because we saw when the second wave hit the rural parts, there was a significant mortality reported from these parts. So in that sense, now since there has been an increase in the coverage in these parts, it will be very important for us to increase it further, because in case we have a third wave, then vaccinations is what will stop us from decreasing hospitalizations as well as mortality. So in that direction, it is a positive development.
And does this also mean that vaccine hesitancy has lowered in rural India?
It clearly is showing that, because if you look at the data, there's been big push in the large rural states, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar. In fact, in Uttar Pradesh, in the last 2 weeks, 73% of the vaccinations happened in rural areas. In Madhya Pradesh, it was almost 70%. Similarly, in Bihar, it was 72%. So, which is a clear indication that in rural India, there has been a significant reduction in vaccine hesitancy. Another thing that also comes out of this increase in numbers is that center is now giving an advance visibility of more than 2 weeks. So the states know when the vaccines are arriving. So to even address vaccine hesitancy, you can do advanced planning before the doses actually arrive, which was not the case maybe a 1.5 month earlier. So since where to plan your vaccination drive, so the local administration can go talk to the local influencers, the religious leaders. So this is happening even in Kerala. We are seeing a significant vaccination now in rural India. So it is because the states know that the vaccines are arriving in that much quantity. So this micro planning and can reduce the vaccine hesitancy in the local areas.
Right, and just talking about the COVID-19 spread, we understand that last week the government had said that in 8 states, the R naught, the reproduction number had increased. So, how are things now, and what did we hear from the government yesterday?
So, like you said, last week they raised a red flag about the raising R naught value. Basically, R naught indicates how rapidly the fresh cases are increasing in a region. If the R naught value is more than one, that signifies that there is an increasing trend of cases. So Tuesday, the health ministry said Himachal, Uttar Pradesh, and Andhra Pradesh, there is a likely indication that there could be an increase in cases. They also said that the R naught value is increasing in Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and Nagaland. Remember, these Uttar Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh are all large states. So the government says that this is a big cause of concern. Not just that, they also said that R naught is increasing, but Kerala, Tamil Nadu, and Karnataka, again, which are large states, are also showing increasing trend in daily average cases. Like 11 districts in Kerala are showing an increase in daily average cases. In Tamil Nadu, 7 districts are showing similar trend, and in Karnataka, it is 5 districts. So on one side, you're seeing these specific states which are showing an increase in R naught. You're also seeing some districts predominantly in South India which are showing increasing trend in daily average cases. And coupled with that, you're also seeing that the Delta variant is rapidly spreading across the country. So these three things is a clear indication that although there has been a kind of stabilization or plateauing of cases in the country, but the increasing trend means that there has to be strict containment and, of course, aggressive vaccination in these areas.
And do experts have any sense of, if and when there is going to be a third wave?
So before that, the government has made it clear that right now the second wave is not over, because the government's point of view is that only once we are reporting less than 10,000 daily new cases, then we can safely say that things are under control. But like we are seeing that we are still reporting somewhere around 35 to 40,000 daily new cases, majority of which is coming from Kerala. So the government is saying that the second wave is not over. On the third wave, again, it all depends upon three things. First is, of course, the COVID appropriate behavior, whether we have super spreading events in the country, if there are huge violations of COVID protocols. Second is, of course, an emergence of a new variant, because the second wave was triggered based mainly due to the Delta variant. So if there is another variant which is more transmissible, then that could be a big cause of concern. And third, and the most important thing, is the percentage of the susceptible population. There have been zero surveys, but these are zero surveys that show us a national picture. But the granular picture, we don't know what is the exact percentage of the population which is still susceptible. So in that sense, vaccination becomes very important, because the more you vaccinate, then you're protecting the larger proportion of the population.
And next, we talk about the e-commerce giants Amazon and Flipkart. Since last year, the Competition Commission of India has been looking to conduct an investigation against Amazon and Flipkart. And both these companies had approached the Karnataka High Court to stop this from happening. But last month, the High Court dismissed their pleas. These companies then approached the Supreme Court in the matter. But yesterday, even the Supreme Court ruled against them and said that the Competition Commission of India will proceed with their investigation. So why do the authorities want to investigate Amazon and Flipkart? To explain this, joining us is Karunjit Singh, who is part of Indian Express's Business Bureau. So, Karunjit, why does the Competition Commission of India want to investigate Amazon and Flipkart, which we know is owned by Walmart?
So the Competition Commission of India wanted to investigate Amazon and Flipkart over allegations by trade bodies, particularly in this case the Delhi Vyapar Mahasangh, which has alleged that both of these platforms have given preferential treatment to certain sellers in the mobile smartphone space in particular by giving them higher search rankings and even offering to incur parts of the discounts that these sellers would offer during key sales periods such as Flipkart's Big Billion Days and Amazon's Prime Day. And another key allegation here is that these platforms are generally giving preferred rankings on search to certain sellers, and other sellers end up losing out because they have lower rankings. And the key fact here is that these platforms seem to have links with these certain few sellers which they are giving preferential treatment to.
And when we talk about these allegations of preferential treatment, could you talk about why is it in general frowned upon and why is it considered illegal?
So the basic principle behind this is fair treatment. The CCI chairman in a recent interview to the Indian Express also said that as sellers become more and more dependent on a platform, especially a large platform, it becomes very important that all sellers are treated equally because otherwise it can lead to distortions in the market. So, for example, one seller, if they're getting a better ranking or if Amazon is paying for part of the discount that they're offering to their customers, what they're actually doing is helping them compete with the other sellers and to the detriment of the other sellers. So what we could end up seeing is efficient sellers who are otherwise efficient being taken out of the market because of this preferential treatment given by platforms such as Amazon and Flipkart. So that is the basic principle why this is both illegal and you would say it's considered wrong in general also, and the issue that the Delhi Vyapar Mahasangh is raising.
And during this time, of course, Amazon and Flipkart challenged this in the courts. What has been their defense regarding all of this?
So the key defense that they've raised is the fact that there are no agreements on record between these sellers who are allegedly getting preferential treatment and Amazon. So CCI has not shown in either its order or in any of their discussions with Amazon and the informants that there are any documents or any agreements which show that there's preferential treatment. And the other thing that Amazon and Flipkart have raised is a bit of a technical issue. The fact that the CCI has not given a prima facie opinion on any potential impact on competition. So to put this simply, the CCI, when it orders an investigation, it usually offers an opinion suggesting that this might be violating competition conduct and therefore we are ordering an investigation. So the fact that they did not do so in this case is a point that Amazon and Flipkart raised to try and quash the investigation.
And now the Supreme Court has ordered that the authorities will investigate these two companies. On what basis has the court given this judgment?
So the Supreme Court has basically upheld the verdict of the Karnataka High Court, which simply said that the CCI is actually not bound to give any justification for ordering what they called an administrative proceeding of ordering an investigation. So since this is not a judgment that is binding on Amazon, there is no real conduct that Amazon has to do and there's no penalty, no fine, or Flipkart for that matter, and neither of these parties are being asked to do anything in particular, change their conduct. The Karnataka High Court ruled that the CCI can in fact order an investigation without needing to provide any prima facie opinion or even show documents or agreements which show that there is any appreciable adverse impact on competition from the conduct of Flipkart and Amazon.
Okay, so the Supreme Court gave this judgment on Tuesday. What happens next in the matter?
So since the High Court had actually already dismissed the petitions by Amazon and Flipkart, the investigation would already be ongoing by the DG of the CCI. And I think the investigation will continue. Usually the DG has about 60 days to file an investigative report, but this timeline is quite loose. Since in many cases we've seen these timelines going up to a year also, as the CCI may ask the DG to reinvestigate some issue if they find some issues with the report. And post the final report, the CCI will take a final judgment on whether they think there have actually been any violations of competition law. And if there have been, Amazon and Flipkart both may be forced to cease the conduct which the CCI has found to be violative of competition law and also pay fines.
And Karunjit, is this the first time such allegations are coming up in India, or is it the first time the authorities are looking to investigate it?
So both Amazon and Flipkart have faced similar allegations of preferential treatment to some sellers to the detriment of other sellers in the past. But the CCI has in each of those cases not ordered an investigation, dismissing the allegations, and therefore this is the first case where both of these large e-commerce players are facing an investigation by the competition regulator.
And how has this played out in other countries? Has Amazon, for example, faced similar allegations abroad?
So Amazon hasn't faced exactly similar allegations in other countries, but they are facing antitrust proceedings in other countries about a number of other issues. So in the EU in particular, they're facing antitrust proceedings about their handling of data. And this is an issue that has also been raised by the CCI here of how online platforms, and in the case of the EU, they are suggesting that Amazon is actually using the data of the sellers on their platform to benefit their retail businesses in terms of the products they're selling and how they're selling them. And even the CCI has raised this issue of potentially how marketplaces might have an incentive to benefit their preferred sellers or even their private labels using the data that they have about other sellers. So this is one issue that's been raised in the EU. In the US, Amazon is facing a separate antitrust investigation about restricting the pricing power of people selling on their platforms. So basically, a seller on Amazon is not allowed to sell any product on any other platform at a lower price. And if they do, then Amazon can actually bury them in very low rankings and make it unviable for them to be on Amazon and makes Amazon sales for them far, far lower. So these are some of the concerns Amazon is facing. It's a large number of cases they're facing, but on the preferred sellers in the smartphone space, I think it's a case mostly in India. India is the largest market which is facing something like that for Amazon.
And in the end, we talk about another recent order by the Supreme Court. In February last year, the Supreme Court had directed all political parties to upload on their websites details of pending criminal cases against their candidates contesting elections. It had noted that there was an alarming increase in criminalization of politics. The court had also said that political parties will have to upload reasons for selecting candidates with pending criminal cases on their website. Now, yesterday, the court imposed fines on 8 political parties, including the Bharatiya Janata Party and the Congress, for failing to comply with this order. According to the court, these parties did not provide details of candidates with criminal backgrounds on their official websites in the Bihar Assembly elections. According to the report by the bar and bench, 6 parties, BJP, Congress, Rashtriya Janata Dal, Janata Dal United, Communist Party of India and Lok Jan Shakti Party were fined 1 lakh rupees for partial non-compliance. Meanwhile, the Communist Party of India, Marxist and Nationalist Congress Party were fined 5 lakh rupees each for total non-compliance of the top court order. A bench headed by Justice Rohinton Nariman said that the reasons for selecting candidates with pending criminal cases should be justifiable with reference to qualification and merit and not merely on winnability. The court passed these orders based on a contempt plea which said that the directions given by the Supreme Court in its September 2018 verdict relating to the disclosure of criminal antecedents by candidates are not being followed. You were listening to 3 Things by the Indian Express. Today's show was written and produced by me, Shashank Bhargav, and was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.